You know, because the second you go after one of these elements in the racket, then they're squeezing the balloon, right? It pops up somewhere else in the racket. You have to go after this as a racket. It's racketeering, it's price fixing, it's wholesale fraud. And until somebody launches that kind of prosecution, we're not going to get rid of our banker infestation problem until people say, you know what, fuck it, dust off the guillotines, we'll take care of it ourselves. I mean, that's what we're talking about. People ultimately, the frustration level is going to get high, and people are saying, I've had it, fuck you. I mean, you hear it all the time now. People are just like, what the fuck, man, this is ridiculous. You know, I'm not getting what's going on.
The people on the street
Hello.
can't. People on the street can't hear you.
I got to the decapitation part. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Okay, well, again, I've got to work this. Okay. Here's another interesting story. You know, they're covering high frequency trading. High frequency trading, you know, something new on the bilking horizon, on the pilfering horizon. See, high frequency trading is it's absurd that this is allowed to continue because by the very nature of how they describe it, you know it's a fraud. It's that these firms like a Goldman, they need to co-locate their servers closer to the exchange to gain another fraction of an instant of a second to front run that massive pipeline of water coming through to siphon that cash. Now, if these guys were in your neighborhood siphoning gas out of your car, you would be upset. So why are we upset that they're siphoning cash from our exchange? That's all they're doing. $100 million a day is being siphoned off the exchange using these types of programs. That's obviously money that could be better spent. When one of the high-frequency trading algo guys was caught leaving the country, you know, they held him for a bit. They took it. He's actually now, I think, going to jail. But yeah, the whistle. So you know, they had a statement from Goldman saying, well, of course you can use this to manipulate markets. And so they basically, you know, of course you can use it to manipulate markets. You think the markets, as I was saying before, I'm a big fan of the Enlightenment and some of the thinking that came out of it, which includes free, laissez-faire type free market capitalism. And the thing about markets is that there's a thing called price discovery, where, a lot of buyers come in, and a lot of sellers come in, and by the action of their interaction, there's a price. And it's a mutually beneficial price to both parties. So it's better than having somebody sit in the middle trying to figure out the best price based on what they believe is the best interest. But it works. So if you have a system where this system is turned around, so instead of prices being the result that come at the end of the price discovery process, you have prices determined before. So the traders on Wall Street, they determine what price they want silver to be at. They figure out the price, what they want the S&P futures contract to be at. What price do they want the various indexes to trade at? Then they create algorithms to take the market to those prices. So that's not anything remotely connected to free market capitalism or laissez-faire markets or price discovery or anything that should be tolerated in any way. It's price manipulation. And the fact that they make a lot of money doing it, and they book themselves huge profits at the end of the year, huge Christmas bonuses, and they can say, see, we're making a lot of money, therefore we're doing the right thing. You know, it doesn't work. It doesn't really make any sense. But unfortunately, you know, these issues are not well understood by leadership, and you know, our current leadership is financially illiterate. You know, you've got he held over guys like Larry Summers, and he held over guys like Tim Geithner. And those guys are part of the problem. They're not interested in correcting the systemic errors that are destroying the economy. And you know, you can see it every day. What's happening to the economy? It's completely being destroyed. All right. Flash crash. I like this. Proposals to avoid new flash crash draw strong opposition. So occasionally when the computers get screwed up, they have what's called a flash crash. You know, there's a 10, 20% markdown in a heartbeat. It's obviously wrong. It's obviously broken. You know, if you have a car crash, you know, you don't then try to spend all your day lobbying to relax rules so that it's easier for people to crash their cars. And yet this is what you have going on right now. It's obviously broken, and what they're doing is they're making it easier to crash because these guys all are in positions to collect rent from the poor victims of these accidents and increase their spread and political influence and the ability to redefine the regulatory environment and to just confiscate massive wealth. And it's just getting worse and worse.
Anyway. Hold on. Well, anyway.
I'd like to go on and on this. And so what I think might make sense is maybe open it up to you all. I mean, I can go on like this for a while, but you know, it's kind of hot. I think you get the basic idea of what I'm saying here. So I think it might make sense to open it up a little bit and we can chat about stuff. Does that sound good? Like a good idea?
Yeah.
They all into that? Okay. So maybe somebody can bring me a little water over here. Be nice at some point. And so for this part of the program, I'm just going to say thank you, and then so thank you very much for coming. Okay, so we'll do some Q&A, and if I don't like the question, I'm going to ask to be able to table it for later, because this way we can get through more questions. Does that sound unfair or unfair? We'll see. We'll see how that works. Maybe that won't work. All right, so we'll start here. Yes, sir.
Yes, do you believe that Glass-Steagall should be put back into law? And if so, how is it a free market solution?
All right, so Glass-Steagall, of course, was put in place after the crash of the 20s, and they brought in and they figured out they've got to separate the casino bank from the utility bank, and you've got to keep a Chinese wall, a firewall between these guys. And for decades, they chipped away, and then Sandy Weil over at Citigroup and that whole crew, they finally got Clinton and his crew to get rid of it, right? And as a result, immediately, exactly what you figure would be the problem, became the problem. So banks' balance sheets went from a leverage of, let's say, 10 to 1, went to 15 to 1, 16 to 1. And higher. I mean, if you look at, depending on how you account for the balance sheet, off balance sheet stuff, they're talking 50 to 60 to 1 leverage on these. So that's how they can get away with being financial terrorists, as I call them. Because when Hank Paulson goes to Congress and says, if you don't give us money, we're going to crash this economy, what he's saying is that we're leveraged 50 to 1. A 2% move in this market is going to wipe out every bank in the country. Give us $1 trillion now, we were fucking dead. And we know that they went backstage, in Congress, and they did actual arm twisting. There was actually threat of martial law. There was actually, it got pretty heavy. So because of this high leverage. When you give somebody that kind of leverage, it's like giving a 2-year-old a gun. I mean, you don't know when they're going to shoot it, what the point of it is. It doesn't make any sense. There's no economic reason to give a bank 50 to 1 leverage over anything at any time for any reason. It makes no sense. They've only abused the privilege, and they've gotten the U.S. into a debt situation they can't possibly repay with any growth scenario one can construct. There's no growth scenario out there. I mean, I've been following markets for 25 years, and I remember that there was the Japan story in the 80s that America was finished, Japan was going to take over, and then Mark Andreessen took Netscape public in 1994, and you had the internet boom, and there was a reason to buy dollars again, and America kind of averted a massive slowdown. But go back to 1971. America was on the verge of default. The dollar was being basically defaulted upon because of the war in Vietnam and the inability to pay for the war. So Nixon had to take the U.S. off the gold standard. And you began the cycle of this leveraging of the economy in ways that can't possibly be sustained. Sure, you can create growth by taking on debt. But, $1 of debt created $1 of GDP growth back in the early 70s. That became $8, $9, $10 of debt up until 2007. So, like any junkie, you run out of ability to take on more and more and more, and you kill yourself. And that's a debt-fueled economy like we have in the U.S. has run its course. Now, is there an Internet 2.0 NASDAQ skyrocket to 5,000 or 6,000 on NASDAQ that's going to turn the tables on this entire situation? Here in New York, it's pretty interesting. You've got a lot of interesting, and you've got a lot of pipeline of great IPOs. You've got a lot of stuff coming through. But I see that as really a sideshow at this point. I think the systemic problems are much greater. The sovereign debt problems are much greater. The U.S. dollar is at risk of really suffering a massive markdown against other currencies. And price of gas is going to triple. Price of gas could quadruple. Price of food go up sharply, and that will fundamentally change everything. And at that point, I don't know how much time you're going to be wanting to spend on Facebook. By the way, Facebook is an interesting story because, of course, they violated SEC rules by offering more than the allotted shares customers per that pre-IPO offering. And Blankfein, was all stinky about it, like, how dare you question our wisdom. And the SEC, well, you broke the law. So then 2 months later, the SEC came out with an announcement that they're thinking of changing the law. So, wow. Oh, okay. I guess that's a good moral lesson for the kids.